David Bowie dead at the age of 69, but should we celebrate this rock legend? Paul Ryan is called out for repealing Obamacare, but not having anything with which to replace it. Is there a split coming in the Republican Party? And Hillary Clinton attacks Bernie Sanders on universal health care. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show, ladies and gentlemen. Progressive Army, let's do this.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Monday, January 11th, 2016. And today, I would say the world is mourning the death of David Bowie, dead at the age of 69 after an 18-month battle with cancer. David Bowie, legendary rock star from the 60s and 70s, most recently married to the supermodel Iman, dead at the age of 69. And you know, before I even talk about the underlying, actually, no, let me just jump right into it. The question is, should we really be celebrating his death? And okay, I said that wrong. We're not going to celebrate his death, but is he a person that should be celebrated? And the reason I ask this is because many people know the stories of his indiscretions at the height of his stardom, particularly with young girls and some young boys. But what's been confirmed is his indiscretion with young girls. And I know, and I tweeted this out and I posted it on my Facebook page, and some people got very upset because they were like, well, can you wait until he's buried, right? Don't bring up these things now. And part of me agrees with them. I'm not gonna lie. Part of me agrees with them and says, you know, let's be mindful that he's just dead. But one of the things I have a number one problem with is hypocrisy, and particularly with the media. Now, bless his family. You know, I know they're bereaved and they're grieving. So I'm not really, everything I'm getting ready to say is not necessarily directed at David Bowie. It's directed at our media, because I believe our media is very selective and very inept at times. But there's a story, there's an account of David Bowie essentially, well, hell, I didn't go this far. Why not go all the distance? So David Bowie, not allegedly, but pretty much confirmed, had sex with underage girls. And the reason I think this is relevant and something that I have to point out, and I'll share the link with you. It's from Thrillist Entertainment. The young woman who gives the account, her name is Lori Maddox, and she says that she essentially lost her virginity to David Bowie. And again, I'm bringing this up because this is not in the media. And the reason I'm bringing it up, not only is it not in the media, but we just came off of this big to-do by the Huffington Post. Basically, I won't even call it attacking R. Kelly, because R. Kelly did the same thing. R. Kelly had sex with underage girls. So I don't consider that attacking a person who's guilty of doing something wrong. You know, you have to pay the piper, right? I have no problem with it. But what I have a problem with is if we're going to have this outrage over R. Kelly, should we not have this outrage over David Bowie? Now, here's the thing. A lot of people don't even know this about David Bowie. And I think it's worth mentioning. Interesting. I think it's worth mentioning over David Bowie. Now, here's the thing. Okay, folks, let me pause midstream. Somebody sent me a tweet saying that there's no video on YouTube. I don't know if everyone is not getting video, but I just got some video, and I see there's some people in the room who are getting videos. I don't know if there's a technical issue with YouTube tonight, but whatever it is, we'll just try to press our way through it. But particularly, let's go back to David Bowie. So if we're going to attack, and actually, it looks like there's something wrong with YouTube. Interesting. I wonder if YouTube is crashing. Well, anyway, let's keep going. Really simply put, I don't even have to pick this up anymore. But listen, David Bowie is guilty of the same thing that R. Kelly is guilty of, having sex with underage girls. David Bowie also has sex with, allegedly, with underage boys. That one has not been proven, but there have been recorded accounts that have come out stating that he has had sex with underage girls. There's documentation of it, and yet we celebrate him. All right, so let me do this. Pedro, I imagine you're calling in to tell me something. What's on your mind?
I actually just wanted to be slightly confrontative with you. Because the opening question, and you did say you phrased it wrong, sort of irks me a bit. Now, I'd like you to
well, before you do that,
Sorry.
let me ask you a question. Are you watching via YouTube or are you listening via Spreaker?
YouTube, and the video's fine.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm not worried about that anymore. Let's rock.
Okay. So, if I remember, you started saying, should we celebrate the death of David Bowie?
Right.
And then you led to it because of the possible allegations with, or because I don't know. I honestly am not like a fan of David Bowie. I don't know his history exactly, but you tied that in, and his allegation with him and young girls, and the lack of media attention towards it versus R. Kelly and his the focus on R. Kelly's allegations. Now, let me ask you something. When you ask that question,
to be sure, are you saying should we celebrate his death?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, if you heard, before you go too far, make sure you heard my correction. When I say should we celebrate his death, I did not mean should we celebrate the fact that he's dead and gone. I meant should we be commemorating his life in face of the fact that he's dead. Okay. Go ahead.
In fact, that's exactly what I want to focus on.
All right, go for it.
I'd like you to clarify. So he's got allegations towards him, and to what idealistic extent would you like the populace to not celebrate him as much? Because you say that because he has such allegations towards them, we should I don't want to say we should back off a bit. We shouldn't be as I'm not sure. Let me ask you. So what do you mean by that? Could you just clarify slightly?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much.
I have a point though, because
you have a point.
I have a point. There's
okay.
A follow-up.
All right. So simple as this. If we are going to dish this public wrath out on people where we give them no mercy, we have to be consistent in how we apply it. If we are not going to do this with David Bowie, when we have the same body of evidence, we have the victims or the young women who say that this happened. We have more than one. We have their full accounts saying that they were stoned and they were 14 and they did this together with David Bowie and all. We have all of this information. If we are going to destroy R. Kelly over his behavior, then surely we should do the same thing. So one thing I'm not saying is that we should we should go easy on anybody, right? I'm saying if we're going to unleash this public wrath that we do so frequently, it should be consistent across the board.
Okay, so the reason I hesitated in Stanford is because I didn't want to talk for you. You say your point's better than I could, but to that extent, then the wrath in which we're giving Bill Cosby is thus warranted, because or do you want us to defend, or do you want us to give some space to David Bowie the same way you had wanted the public to give Bill Cosby?
Again,
because that's where I'm coming from.
I think again, and I'm glad this is coming back around, because I think a lot of people still have a misconception of what I'm saying with Bill Cosby. I'm not saying give Bill Cosby any space. I'm saying be consistent with our outrage. We cannot defend and protect people who are guilty of almost the same exact thing in terms of the law, right? In terms of the law, it is almost equivalent. Statutory rape is almost equivalent to non-consensual sex rape, right? In terms of the time you get in prison, depending on the state, there's small variations. But then we're actually talking about apples to apples, right? Let's throw Bill Cosby off the table. With R. Kelly and David Bowie, those are apples to apples. And I'm saying we cannot, if we're going to be a just society who's going to exact our public rage on people, then we must be consistent or not do it at all. So if that's exactly what I'm saying. And I think this is so clear and evident, especially in the media, because the media is not talking about this at all. And they have the same access to the same internet that I have.
Okay, I'm just going to leave on this point. I wouldn't quite easily throw Bill Cosby off the table, not so much because of the content of the crime per se, but the reason I'm bringing this up to you is because I understood that you weren't trying to not admonish, like you weren't trying to clear Bill Cosby of anything. You were just saying, and I remember this clearly, you shouldn't try to tear down the goodness of what he had done. And so now you saying that we shouldn't,
to be honest with you, to be honest with you, I haven't quite finished saying what I was going to say. So let me finish saying what I was going to say, and then I just feel like there's a dissonance. I'll leave now. I just feel like there's a dissonance between how you want to stick up in some way for Bill Cosby's legacy and not so much for David. I'll keep listening to this show. All right.
Yes, go on.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And I'm glad you can watch via YouTube. That's important because I'm getting several tweets saying that YouTube is down. Okay. So with Bill Cosby, I will say that, and I'll still say this with David Bowie, right? David Bowie is the perfect muse, if you would. And I know he's dead, right? And I know people are mourning, and I respect that. But it's the perfect example of selective outrage and people wanting to remember his legacy, people wanting to remember the good things about him. But there is a serious problem when we can remember the good things about some people who are just as guilty as the next person. And so we have this weird intersection of selective outrage over men who have done and women who have done despicable things, right? I don't think there's anybody who would disagree that what David Bowie did is as despicable as what R. Kelly did, right? Some people may have different levels between Bill Cosby. Let's take Bill Cosby off the table. But with David Bowie and R. Kelly, they have both did some really despicable things. And so the question is, are we going to be equally as outraged? Are we going to bring did any of you even know this? Let's start there. Did any of you even know that David Bowie could have been charged with statutory rape, but the statute of limitations passed? How many people even knew that? And that to me speaks that we have a selective justice system here where some people can get away with murder. Some people can get away with statutory rape and other people cannot. And this is not a defense for those who can't get away with it. It's simply a conviction of the people who do get away with it, as well as the media, who is very complicit in this entire thing. Should people still celebrate David Bowie? I would say yes. And I'm not trying to tear him down. I'm simply pointing out this glaring contradiction, that we would venerate him, we would lift him up, protect his legacy, while so willingly, like they just 2 weeks ago, they destroyed R. Kelly on the Huffington Post interview for the same exact allegations. So that disconnect is very, very troubling to me. And whether you want to celebrate him or not, that's absolutely up to you, right? You should do as you see fit in terms of how you want to celebrate. All right, let me grab this caller and we'll keep trucking. Will from New York, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Ben? It's Will in New York. You already said that.
Yes.
But I'm listening, and I don't know. I tend to reach for the Bible because that's what makes the most sense to me. And we talked about it. I'm not even necessarily a Christian, but all men have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and all sins are equal in the eyes of God. So you have this yin and this yang of these men that do really good things, and then they have some skeletons in their closet, but maybe we look the other way. But on the other side of that, I think you have the same amount of good that's being done, and there's some skeletons in the closet, and we don't look the other way. And I think the yin and yang symbol is actually perfect for that because it comes in black and white, and the media paints this narrative of, we're going to rip you to shreds if you're an O.J. Simpson or a Bill Cosby or any of these other ones. But David Bowie gets a pass, and you've got, I'm sure there were some atrocities that Led Zeppelin committed. I'm sure you've heard the story about them doing weird stuff with fish and throwing TVs out of hotel windows.
Like, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, and really it goes to this. It goes to this point also. If we dig in anybody's past, we're going to find something that's going to make them not worthy of our public fandom or worship, right? For lack of a better word. So if we keep digging in anyone's past, we'll find these things. But for me, it's just, hey, this is a case of apples to apples. Just 2 weeks ago, we were all in the media celebrating how this journalist got R. Kelly. And yet not one major media outlet has mentioned it. And this is not, sometimes we say that as hyperbole, right? Sometimes we say nobody in media is talking about this, and maybe 5 or 6 people are. There is not one media outlet who has put this out ever. And I guarantee you most people listening have never heard about these allegations.
No, and every single rock star from the 80s, every glam band, I'm sure there's some crazy wild story of 13 and 14-year-old girls doing way too much blow and doing things with Eddie, whoever the Van Halen was at that time, but that gets swept under the rug. And they dig deeper for people that they want to villainize to paint that narrative that we always talk about. So, I mean, that's what I've seen. Nobody's perfect.
Absolutely.
And they choose to dig whether or not the person is someone they want to vilify to continue their narrative or not.
And that's my problem, Will. That's exactly my problem with this whole thing, man. I appreciate the call.
All right. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Anytime. Folks, you can join the conversation too. 857-600-0518. Listen, I have to juxtapose the two, right? I have to put them side by side. Do I say in my idealistic way that we should be forgiving to people and give and let their good speak for them more so than the bad that they do? Yes, absolutely. But do I see a glaring hypocrisy right here today where no one, zero, Google, I will share the article with you guys. Google it for yourself. Not a single media outlet of any significance, right? I think I might be the only one who's doing an actual audio or video broadcast about this, right? Everything else is in writing. No one is even bringing this up. And I just can't help but see the disconnect. Is this to sully his name? No, but it's to say that we have selective outrage and we apply it inequitably. And that is a form of injustice itself. And this is the biggest thing, when we decide to apply our public outrage onto somebody about something they did, then we better realize we're opening that up to everybody who has done the same thing. But then the reality of it is maybe we're not. Maybe some people can actually get away with these types of things. All right, enough about David Bowie. Let me go to Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan was called out this weekend for, semi-called out, right? I don't think this is a real calling out, but he was called out for attempting to repeal Obamacare while having absolutely nothing to replace it with. Now, the truth of the matter is, this is not new. This is exactly what they've been doing and trying to do since 2010, since the day it passed. They have been trying to repeal Obamacare and have absolutely nothing to replace it with. So Paul Ryan was on Face the Nation with John Dickerson on yesterday, and I have a clip of it, but I think the problem is YouTube is crashing for some people, and for others it's playing. So yeah, it's
you said you wanted,
all I can get from this is the audio. So I'm just going to play the audio from Paul Ryan. I can't get any video from YouTube. So here's Paul Ryan on Face the Nation discussing the repeal of Obamacare. Here we go.
you said you wanted the Republicans to offer an alternative to the president. One of the first things you did this year, though, was offer that repeal. How is that an alternative?
It's just not. That's why we have to come up with an alternative. So you're right about that.
Will you do that? There will be
yeah.
a bill that will come out of the House voted on with all.
My goal, I don't know how far it will go, given the fact that we have a filibuster and a guy named Obama who's not going to replace Obamacare. But my goal is that we, as Republicans, if we don't like these laws, don't like the direction the country's going, I think we have to be more than just an opposition party. We have to be a proposition party. So if we don't like this, we got to show how we would do things differently. And we really think Obamacare is failing, whether it's premiums, restricted access, higher deductibles, families losing the insurance that they wanted to keep. And that's happening all across the country. People are hurting, and we need to offer a solution. So yes, on this and many other issues, we need to offer alternatives. And that's
all right, that's enough. All right, so this was him on Face the Nation this weekend. They have nothing to replace Obamacare with. They have had 8 years to come up with something to replace Obamacare with, and they have come up with absolutely nothing. So they're okay with repealing Obamacare and having nothing to replace it with, so long as they can replace Obamacare, right? It's the proverbial horse before the cart, or cart before the horse, or whichever one is the wrong way around. That's what they've been doing, right? And somehow this makes sense to them that they should get rid of Obamacare without even offering or having something on the plate to replace it with. That's because there is nothing to replace it with, unless you're going to talk about the single payer system, which we will get to Hillary Clinton and her thing today. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, another attempt to repeal Obamacare with nothing to replace it with. I'll give Jeb Bush this. Jeb Bush is one of the only candidates, only Republican for that matter, to offer up an actual alternative to Obamacare. Back in October, I think around October 15th, he released his policy, his plan on replacing Obamacare. And economists said across the board that it will cut cost. But just because you cut costs doesn't mean that you're actually going to get something better. And I think that's a misnomer. That's a misconception, rather, that is prevalent in Republican circles, right? As long as we cut costs, that's all that matters. Never mind the fact that it's going to be detrimental to most of Americans, particularly in more impoverished Americans, right? So, but at least Jeb Bush offered something. Here is the Speaker of the House. Here is the Republican caucus in the House for the last 6 years trying. I think at least 40 times they've passed legislation to repeal Obamacare. Now they have support in the Senate, and they actually passed a bill sent to President Obama, essentially wasting millions upon millions of dollars that they could have used to try to formulate something better than Obamacare. The problem is they can't find anything better than Obamacare short of the single payer system. Now, here's a problem with that interview. The problem with that interview is that he allowed Paul Ryan to get away with saying, we want to replace it, but never question him about what they're going to replace it with. It's like this is where logic ends, or this is where journalistic prowess really ends. They ask a question and they're not capable of asking a follow-up. Paul Ryan says, yes, we want to replace it. But here's the thing. You tried to repeal it first. And you've been trying to replace it or repeal it for 6 years and still have. And so the journalist, John Dickerson, just let him get away with this and run off into his talking points And that's just endemic across the board in media. Instead of asking the most sensible and the most logical follow-up question, which is, if you haven't come up with it yet, what makes you think, or what makes us believe that you're capable of coming up with something? The other thing they don't do is unpack the lies about how Obamacare is failing. I did a video several months ago about Jeb Bush and about how much money he made specifically off of Obamacare. They make Obamacare sound like it's this failing enterprise, that it's crumbling at the seams. It's detrimental to the private sector. It's detrimental to families. It's detrimental to everyone, right? That's the condition that that's the urgency that they try to cape their attempts to repeal Obamacare in, when in reality, many of them, particularly Jeb Bush, are profiting off of Obamacare. Jeb Bush was a board member of Tenet Healthcare, and Tenet Healthcare, as a board member, he had to maintain significant stock in Tenet Healthcare. And that's kind of the structure of board membership. After the full implementation of Obamacare, the stocks that Jeb Bush had in Tenet Healthcare netted him a profit of $500,000. This was after the full implementation, the full rollout around 2014. After the full implementation of Obamacare, Jeb sold his stock in Tenet Healthcare, and he profited about $500,000. So if Obamacare is such a huge burden on the private sector, if Obamacare is this huge detrimental thing to the healthcare industries, it sure as hell is doing really good for people like Jeb Bush and people who own stock in healthcare industries. So as with everything else, this boils back down to the fact that our media are simply not doing their jobs. Like, this is public information. They have access to this as much as I have access to this. And who was that caller last week? There was a caller last week that said that they had been kind of naive because they believed that the media was complicit with, let's say, complicit with whatever, with corporations. And then they realized, after a while, that the media is really co-conspirators, right? They're not just silently and tacitly approving, they're active in this. And part of me believes that this entire thing is nothing more than a game. This entire political argument is nothing more than a game, a very significant game. They're playing with the lives of millions of people. They're playing with the futures of millions of people. But to them, it's nothing more than a game, because the same information that I just gave you about the profit that one of the Republican presidential candidates made off of Obamacare, showing that it is not detrimental to the private sector and that it has been beneficial, therefore it has definitely not been detrimental to jobs, they would never ask a substantive question like this, because it would begin to unravel a real conversation as to why are Republicans opposing it in the first place. So no, I don't think that they are ignorant. I don't think that they're tacitly endorsing this type of rhetoric and this type of waste of American tax dollars, repealing and voting to repeal over and over and over again. I think they're just co-conspirators in this political game that never ends. Never ends. So long as they can keep pitting Republicans against Democrats. As long as they can keep doing that, then their ratings stay up and they make more money. And they all make more money playing with the existence and the lives and the futures of hundreds of millions of Americans. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
John from Louisiana. How you doing, man?
Doing good, John. Good to hear from you, man. What's on your mind?
Hey, I don't really think they really want to repeal Obamacare. I think it's just an act because they haven't came up with a plan, which is, like you said, is obvious. I think since it was the right-wing plan anyway, it's just a delay into whatever because I think we eventually will move to a single-payer system. But I think it's just a way of them trying to curtail that. I really don't see that. I mean, Ben Carson came out with this. My sister told me about a healthcare spending plan thing, whatever account plan that, like that. How could that replace, health insurance? I don't know, but I just don't think they are trying for real to repeal. Yeah. I think this is all for brownie points with their base. That's it.
Yeah, and I think
who doesn't understand Obamacare at all anyway, but
Yeah, I think, like I was saying, I think it's all a big game to them, right? I think they don't have, all they have is opposition. That's all they have. That's the only thing they have is their ability to oppose President Obama. Because now, granted, President Obama came and co-opted their idea, right? You said it, that this was a right-wing idea. This was birthed out of the Heritage Foundation, first started by Romney, first tested out by Romney here in Massachusetts. So this is a right-leaning giveaway to the insurance industry, the healthcare industries, right? So they are perfectly okay with the results, which is evident by the fact that Jeb Bush made $500,000 selling his stock in a company that he was merely a board of director on, right? So they're getting paid. Their industries are doing fine. Everyone is healthy. This is all just a game to them because they don't want to give President Obama a single victory, and they don't want him to have a legacy that says he did anything beneficial, even if that means them going against their own idea.
You're right. It's like it's about opposition, like you said. But why haven't the Republican base just figured this out yet? How long has it been? How many times have they tried to repeal it? I'm serious.
I think they're over 40 at this point. I think they're over 40. They're over 40 times, and I think they feel the Republican base, which takes me to my next segment. Man, appreciate the phone call. They feel as though they have some revelation in terms of the odds that's against them, which is evident in this article that I was reading from the New York Times, asking the question of, is there a split? Is there an imminent split in the Republican Party? And the simple answer is, of course. Of course there's a split coming in the Republican Party. You can see it, we've been seeing it all summer long. But the split has, the way the New York Times wants to wrap it is that this split is really regarding economic issues and the disagreement that the working class Republican has with the establishment Republican. And so some Republicans feel, kind of like you were saying, John, they feel like they have this figured out, when in reality, they've got the wrong thing figured out. They feel like the answer is a Donald Trump, but they clearly have misdiagnosed, right, the real problem. They feel that the problem is Obamacare, and they still want somebody to repeal Obamacare, when in reality, Obamacare has been beneficial to the economy, to the average American. I've heard stories of some Americans seeing their rates go up, but in general, it's been an overall success for most Americans. More people are insured right now. Could it be better? Absolutely. We could have a single payer system. But their solution, and by there I'm referring to the Republicans, their solution is to turn away from programs like Obamacare, to absolutely deride anything like single payer system, to completely dismiss the economic viability of Bernie Sanders' plan, and turn towards more austerity, cutting taxes, cutting benefits. That to them is the solution in their minds. So simultaneously, you have a segment of the Republican Party who feels like the establishment has been playing them. So they have a moment of epiphany, right? But then they turn around to the worst solution possible for the problem that they diagnosed. They turn and run to a Donald Trump. They turn and run to a Ted Cruz. That's this whole era of misinformation, this whole era of the do nothings, or the know nothings, right? The know nothing party, where they intentionally embrace misinformation because it satisfies that itch in them. But so yes, they feel as though the establishment has betrayed them, but no, they haven't figured out the right solution because they're turning to a Donald Trump and a Ted Cruz. And this goes directly to the New York Times article that I wanted to discuss, which is that is bringing a split in the Republican Party, which for me is like, here, split them up. They deserve to be split up. But the New York Times article, again, puts it on economic issues, and they say nothing really of the reason I laid out this summer that the Republican Party is splitting. The Republican Party is splitting not just because of economics. The Republican Party is splitting because of economics, nationalism, and bigotry. Because if it was just economics, and this is one of the things that we were arguing about extensively with the Progressive Army a few weeks ago, a little internal spat. But if it was just about economics, then they would rightfully turn their attention to someone like Bernie Sanders. But it's not just about economics. It's about economics, nationalism, with a hint and sometimes tremendous overtones of bigotry. And so you have the establishment Republican Party. They're seriously terrified and collapsing because they don't know what to do with Donald Trump, and they don't know that they can continue to pacify this block of voters that they've been pacifying for the last 40 years with subtle Southern strategies, xenophobia, putting up a boogeyman, all the while getting away with economic treachery. So now the people have caught on to the economic treachery, and all they have left is the nationalism, the boogeyman, and the bigotry. I mean, what do you do with that? Bernie Sanders seems to think that he can win them over. And I still don't know if he can. I still don't know if they're going to be willing to let go. Bernie Sanders gave a caveat. He said if they would be willing to realize that it's not the Mexican picking tomatoes near the Everglades in South Florida that's taking your jobs. It's the fact that your jobs have been shipped overseas. He said if they can get over that and see the real problem, then yes, he has a solution for them. But the real question is, can they get over the nationalism, the bigotry, and the xenophobia? There's a very, very strong propensity of a certain segment of America to go full nationalist, like full-throated. If you're not American, if you're not Christian, or will allow some people from Judaism, but if you're not exactly the way we need you to be, then this isn't for you. And Donald Trump has tapped into that, and the establishment Republican Party is incapable of stopping him because they fed that monster for a very, very long time. They fed that monster for 40 years. And so there was a saying my dad used to say, you can feed an alligator all you want, you'll be the last one it eats. And that's what we're seeing with the Republican Party. They're incapable of stopping Donald Trump because they created a monster in their base that feeds off of Donald Trump and knows no other leader than a person like Donald Trump. So I think it's a silly question from the New York Times. Is there going to be a split? Of course there's going to be a split. The Republican Party is inept. They are not, the establishment is not politically savvy enough anymore to keep this coalition together. You're going to see a very strong divide. And I argue you're going to see a similar divide in progressive circles, in the Democratic Party. I think this 2016 is a pivotal election. I cannot stress that enough. This is more significant than Barack Obama's election by far, because we are seeing the dividing of our political parties from 2 into 4. And the question is, which one of those 4 groups are really going to take the lead as we merge back into 2? Because the way our bank account is set up, the way our system is set up, we're not going to have 4 parties. We're going to always have 2 parties. But the question is, which ideology is really going to foment to the top and take lead? I'll unpack that more after this call. 202, Solomon, DC, what's on your mind?
Oh, Ben, something big just happened. Like the split you're talking about in the Democratic Party, it's bigger than the Republican Party, even though the Republican Party is more visual. I just linked you to this on Twitter. But
is that Joe Biden?
Yep. This morning on Morning Joe, Tom Hartman talked about this on his show today. I believe you said you watch his show occasionally or listen to it. He noted the fact that when Joe and Mika were bringing up the poll numbers and how Joe and a couple members had talked to the staff of various other Democratic leaders, saying that if Hillary Clinton loses both Iowa and New Hampshire, the panic button get pressed, and the Democratic leaders, people around Gore, said that there are going to be calls made. Kerry, Biden, Elizabeth Warren, that they're all going to start being called if she loses both. And Harold Ford, who I didn't really know, but apparently is very important in Democratic establishment circles, apparently. He seemed very panicked and very against when Mika said, why don't they just coalesce around Sanders if he's winning? He's the Democratic nominee. What's the problem? And he would, no, almost robotically, like, no, avowed socialist, that can't happen. You can't allow that to happen. It seemed like they were more afraid of Bernie winning than whether Bernie might lose. And that to me, that was just, interesting. I'll keep it to the side. But this article is hitting them even harder. It's in it. He talks, Biden doesn't endorse Bernie, but he basically defends Bernie against the attacks Hillary's making on him with guns, and praises Bernie for coming in to the fight and bringing to the national attention regarding income inequality, and says Hillary Clinton is relatively new to that fight. And CNN and then television networks are panicking so fast on this. But I just watched, I paused the headline on CNN, will Michael Bloomberg run for the White House in the Democratic nomination? That fast. Regarding this interview they just had with Biden. Like, Iowa hasn't even voted yet, and that's how panicked they're getting, because also it's a pollster that has a C- with 538, but they just put Bernie 3 points ahead in Iowa. And another, I think, American Observer, which has a B with 538 pollster rating, says he's only 9 points behind in the national primary. So the panic has already started.
Right. So here's,
and I don't know
here's
if
the
I
thing.
should be scared, but I'm just amused right now.
No, I think it's amusing, right? Here's the deal. Reality check for everyone who's been voting Democrat all your life, at least the last 35, 40 years. The Democratic establishment is but one social issue different than the Republican establishment. There are very few differences between those establishments. And that establishment, they are the ones who make this game a consistent cycle. There's a consistent thing every 2 years. They get everyone worked up. They pretend like they hate each other, but all the while they are all benefiting from two things: the lobbyists and the potential jobs that they get when they leave Congress. So they are all playing the same exact game. And so finally, it has taken 40 years for the Republican establishment, as the Republican base, as well as the Democratic progressive base, to finally wake up and say, you know what? We're damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't. We've vote a Republican into office. We're going to get the same type of trade deals that are going to, bitch slap us, in terms of our jobs. If we vote a Democrat, we think that they're going to protect us from these things, but they feed us to it. Right? They use Barack Obama, they use Bill Clinton to make it more palatable. And so now the two different bases, totally ideologically different, right? But we're all dissatisfied with the economic paradigm. That's the consistent thing. We're all dissatisfied. And so we are seeing the split of both parties. We are seeing the progressives going one way, and we are seeing those folks on the right. I don't know what to call them. They're not really conservatives. They're like national socialists, Nazis. They're going in their direction, and they're all moving away from the establishment, and the establishment is terrified. And as right they should be, because that represents a dynamic change.
On the Democratic side, their response is Michael Bloomberg, an actual billionaire.
Yeah. That's
Michael Bloomberg.
I saw that too. You know what? But that's far more detrimental. I think at that point, that might be one of the few things, one of the very, very few things. If the Democratic establishment abandons Hillary Clinton and turns it over to a Michael Bloomberg or a Joe Biden or whoever, I think that might be one of the few things that will make some, not all, but a portion of the Hillary Clinton bots wake up and realize that Hillary Clinton does not represent progressivism. Hillary Clinton represents the establishment.
And that she doesn't even represent the establishment that much.
Well, not at that point. At that point, yeah.
If she damages the establishment's brand, they'll drop her like anything. They're the establishment.
Yeah. Well, not even damage the brand, but if she can't win on behalf of the brand.
Yeah, exactly. She can't maintain status quo power.
Yeah. Solomon, thanks so much for the call, man.
No problem.
All right, folks. Let's see. Let's do something here. Let me do some housekeeping. Actually, let's do that. Put user in timeout. Oh, no. Sorry, not you. Sorry. Todd Hamlin, my bad. I put the wrong person in timeout. I was clicking on the wrong person. Let's try this again. I'm putting somebody in timeout on YouTube because they're just in there trolling our room. All right. Anyway, folks, that's the deal. That's where we are. Both establishment parties are terrified, and rightfully they should be, because the population has finally waken up. Well, we're awake. I can never do that one. I can never conjugate that one. We are awake. The sad thing about it is half of us that are awake and turn to the wrong solution. And that's the Donald Trump contingency, right? They're awake and they think they got this figured out. They think they have the solution, and they turned around and gone into something that's far worse than what they already have, which is the establishment. Donald Trump represents far worse. All right. I want to talk about Hillary Clinton in specific now, on Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton, I have a clip that was sent over to me from Twitter. So let me see if I can get this one to play really quickly. And this is Hillary Clinton attacking universal health care. And I just thought it was very, very ironic when you consider, well, you know what?
Take Medicare.
Let me just let me let her speak for herself. This is Hillary Clinton on, what is this? MSNBC at a live rally. They decided to give her some coverage. Let's listen in and see how she attacks Bernie Sanders on healthcare, on universal healthcare. Yep. And here we go.
Would take Medicare and Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program and Affordable Care Act healthcare insurance and private employer health insurance. He would take that and he would take it all together and send health insurance to the states, turning over yours and my health insurance to governors like Terry Branstad.
All right, so this is her claim. She's claiming that Bernie Sanders' plan is going to turn over your health care to the state governors. Now, she doesn't give anything to substantiate this claim. She doesn't say on line 3 of Bernie Sanders' proposal, this is going to expose your health care to state governors. She doesn't say anything of the sort. She just makes this claim, and now everyone around the internet, all the Hillary bots are running and saying Bernie Sanders wants to turn your health care over to the governors, which is far from the truth if you think about the basic concept of universal health care, single payer, a single Medicare for all, a single payer system comes from the federal government. Yes, there have been some governors who have stranglehold their state by not increasing the Medicaid expansion, but we're talking about a different system. We're talking about a single payer system. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out what she could possibly be referring to. And I can't for the life of me think about any component of a single payer system that Bernie Sanders is advocating for that would be in the control of a state governor. Unlike Obamacare, where they have been capable, governors have been fully capable of stopping the setup of a state level exchange system. They've been capable of stopping Medicaid expansion. They've been capable of blocking this in a lot of different ways, which means in certain states, look, this is the stupidity. In certain states, it is more expensive to get health care because those governors have not set up those state exchanges and because they have not expanded Medicaid in those states. Those are the two ways that they're capable of blocking Obamacare right now. In the absence of those, yes, your premiums are going to be higher. And so while they're simultaneously say, look and see, look, those premiums are higher, well, they're making them higher. That's number one. But number two, Hillary Clinton, I can't think of anything in the single payer system, and she did not provide any substance. She's just talking, and everyone is buying her words, taking her word for it without any substance, is saying that Bernie Sanders is trying to turn over your health care to the state. Also that she can oppose Bernie Sanders. I want to play something for you. This is Hillary Clinton, 2008. Let's go over here. Hillary Clinton in 2008. I want you to listen to her. And she's not playing. Here we go.
By waging a false campaign against my plan, to be talking about NAFTA in a way that tries to make him appear to have a plan when he does not. This healthcare mailing, which is very reminiscent of the health insurance industry's attacks on what we tried to do the last time we went after universal health care, is the worst kind of politics. Destructive, particularly for a Democrat.
I want to start that again. Listen again.
Not the new politics that the speeches are about. It is not hopeful. It is destructive, particularly for a Democrat, to be discrediting universal health care by waging a false campaign against my plan.
One more
Democrat.
time.
To be hopeful, it is destructive, particularly for a Democrat, to be discrediting universal health care by waging a false campaign against my plan. To be talking about
out of Hillary Clinton's own mouth. It's amazing what 8 years can do. 8 years later, she's doing exactly what she accused President Obama of doing, attacking the single payer system, which is a hallmark of the Democratic progressive. It used to be a hallmark of the Democratic progressive movement, but now, because she saw, I guess, the strategy work for President Obama, now she's going full-fledged with that strategy because she wants to get elected. She's thrown the single payer system on the altar of opportunity. And out of her own mouth, it's destructive, particularly destructive for a Democrat to attack a fundamental hallmark of progressivism, which is a single payer system. But somehow her supporters missed this. Not to mention, she gives no substance to support what she said whatsoever. Will from New York, you're back on the air.
Hey, what's up? Sorry, I hate calling in more than one time in one night, but I felt the need to.
Go for it.
Because this issue kind of mirrors all the other systemic corruption within the industrial complexes that we have in the United States. When you go to court, your public defender, if you're unfortunate to the point that you can't afford like a real attorney, when they meet with you in jail and it's, we're going to fight for you, we're going to do our best for you, and we're going to do everything we can for you because we're here to support you. And then they leave and they go and they have beers with the prosecuting attorney and are like, well, how do we shuffle this guy out of the system fast enough? And I feel like the level of corruption that's there is mirrored within our own political system, in that on the left, we have a lot of colorful words that actually have no substance value whatsoever. However, they're words that people can latch onto, like, yes, she has a plan. We'll find out what it is once she's elected.
Yeah. Stay
and then
tuned
it
in
ends
for
up
the next
being more of
episode.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get what I'm saying. Like the corruption, they play both sides in a different way.
No, absolutely.
And it happens in that complex of politics. It happens in our criminal justice system. And that's why there's no real reform. They appease the people on the left with a lot of colorful language about all this great change and progress that they want to happen, except they have the same owners as the guys that sell fear on the other side, and nothing ever ends up getting done in any of these systems. So,
Absolutely, that's the case.
It's just across the board. It's all the same.
Not a problem. Hey, just so you know, the chat room says that you have absolutely no problem calling in twice. It doesn't bother you. So I thought that was fun. All right, man. Thanks for the call.
I hear what you say, and I have a point to add here or there, but it's systemic. It's across all of these platforms.
Absolutely.
And it's all the same thing.
Thanks for the call, Will.
So, thanks.
And I agree with them. It is across the board. The question is, how much are you going to give in to just to support a party or a particular nominee? I get it. I get that you're excited about Hillary Clinton. I get that you want the first female president. I get that you've been dedicated to Hillary Clinton for the last 25, 30 years, depending on when you first fell in love with Hillary Clinton. I get it. But if you cannot see her progression or regression from, or was she, even if you go all the way back, then you can't really say that she was ever really a progressive from the beginning, because from the beginning, she was with Barry Goldwater. And then she emerged in the 90s as this firebrand, liberal, feminist, and everything, this great model for the professional woman, family woman. And I get it. But when you see politicians betray their own ideas, it's time to let them go. Period. When you see Marco Rubio betray his own idea on immigration, it's time to let him go. He's lost his soul. He sold his political soul. When you see Republicans turn coat on Obamacare just for the sake of opposition of Obama, then it's time to let them go. When you see Hillary Clinton turn on the single payer system just so that she can oppose Bernie Sanders, it's time to let her go. Because if they're not going to even stand for the things that they were just fighting for the other day, then what else will they change their mind on? I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said about that. The Progressive Army website is up and live. Go to progressivearmy.com and register for our blog. We have a lot of great writers over there. They are all putting out great content, and we'll keep having them put it out as we grow and build. It is a platform for progressivism. That's number one. So make sure you go and join the Progressive Army at progressivearmy.com. Make sure you follow the Progressive Army on Twitter at Progressive Army, and on Facebook, facebook.com Progressive Army. What is the Progressive Army? The Progressive Army is any one of you who is going to pick up your rhetorical arms and fight back against propaganda from the left and propaganda from the right. You're going to fight for progressivism. You're going to fight for human progress. You're going to fight to move us forward, and you're going to fight for what's right. So that's the Progressive Army. We do let me skip that part. I'll tell you about that part another time. While you're subscribing, make sure you click the subscribe button on Spreaker and on YouTube. Guys, my 1-year anniversary is a month from tonight. A month from tonight, I would have been doing the Benjamin Dixon Show for an entire year. Help me to get to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Help me to get to 6,000 subscribers on Spreaker. I want to be able to say that I got 5,000 subscribers in the first year, and on Spreaker, we got to 6,000 subscribers in the first year. So make sure you share every single video. Big shouts to all of the volunteers who are helping build the Progressive Army. It's going to grow into something way bigger than just the Benjamin Dixon Show, but because they are volunteering with the Benjamin Dixon Show, it is helping all of this to grow. So make sure you go to progressivearmy.com, register for the blog. You can go to the benjamindixonshow.com, register for the blog, give us your email address. You know what to do. And with that, reading so many great comments tonight, but I'm going to bid you adieu, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, Bryce.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
He's been blocked. I don't like banning, but if he's a prevalent troll, yeah. I don't like blocking either, but this chat room, this is your space over here, guys. So, you let me know. I'll make matter of fact, so that I'm not so late getting to it. You guys vote for an administrator over here on the chat room. Tell me who you think should be the administrator. I'll make them an administrator, and they have the ability to block. That is they have the ability to block trolls. Like I said, I'm not give trolls a little space to stretch their legs, but if it becomes to the point where reasonable men don't feel like dealing with it, reasonable men or women don't feel like dealing with it, feel free to block them. You change your background. I'm the martyr. Vote for me. I'm gonna show. I was watching the debate on Fusion page. You're gonna watch it, Ben? Yep, I'm gonna go watch it. Can somebody tweet me the link again? I'm gonna go over there and watch it. Oh, snap! On what time is the State of the Union on Wednesday? My microphone sounds a little distorted. Was my microphone distorted to you guys? It sounds distorted now. What time is the State of the Union? I'm thinking 9 o'clock, right? Everything starts at 9 o'clock on the East Coast. So I'm thinking, what time is the State of the Union? Somebody knows. Let's look. Okay, thanks, Todd. I see Iron Will. I see
instead of that long laundry list of.
Great. 7:30 Central Time, so that's 8:30 our time. Son of a bitch, really? Why does it start so in the middle of my damn? 9 p.m. Okay, so it starts at 9 p.m. Time on Tuesday, January 20th. Oh, wait a minute. That's not this week, is it? Holy crap. When is the freaking State of the Union? Is it this week? It was all worth it. Great Zombie Jesus. I have to tell you guys a story about Zombie Jesus. Like, I was the first, and this is horrible considering I'm a Christian. Me and my girl named Tracy, Tracy M from New York. We were laughing and joking back in like 2007. And somehow or another, we came up with Zombie Jesus, and we were going to register the website and make t-shirts and everything. But, you know, I started feeling guilty. I could have been rich if I had ran with that idea back in 2007. It's tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow night? Holy crap. I thought it was. Okay, so let me find out. Listen, the point is, this is what matters, YouTube. Whatever time the State of the Union address starts, if it starts at 8, then at 9, we'll do the show. If it starts at 9, then I'm going to do it an hour before. Better yet, I'll just send out a tweet and some emails. So I'm going to make our show not conflict with the State of the Union. Long story short. Oh, Julio found another way back in. I've got all day. All right. So Todd, thank you. The State of the Union is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So that means tomorrow night we will have the show at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll have it an hour early so that we don't conflict with the State of the Union, which normally goes to like midnight. So I'm not doing the show afterwards. So yes, Hillary was just make gays like pop, 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 pop. All right. I guess I'm just wasting time now. I could actually go and edit some articles and do some other cool stuff for the Progressive Army. Hey, folks, thanks for hanging out with me. I shouldn't have been hiding. I should have been showing my tie and not hiding behind this damn microphone slumped over. I'll holla.